Speak to remember. Unlock language learning. Introduction. Have you ever studied a new language for a long time, but then found it hard to say even simple words when you tried to speak? You listened to many hours of audio, memorized many word lists, and read many articles, but the language felt like it disappeared when you needed it. This is a common problem. You spend time studying and doing exercises, but the smooth speaking you want seems far away. You might feel like you were doing the right things, but something is still missing. This feeling of being stuck, of not truly connecting with the language, is felt by many learners. The truth is, the best way to truly learn a language and remember it forever is not just by taking in information. It is by actively using it. This book is based on a simple, but strong idea: to learn a language well and remember it for a long time, you must use it by speaking, writing, and explaining what you learn, not just by listening or reading. We call this active language use. Think about the difference. Learning without using is like watching a cooking show. You see a chef make a tasty meal, and you might write down the recipe, but you don't truly learn to cook until you put on an apron, pick up a knife, and start cutting vegetables, mixing things, and tasting what you make. Active language use is like that hands-on cooking for language. It means saying the words yourself, writing your own sentences with new words, and explaining ideas in the language you are learning. When you do these things, your brain works harder, connecting ideas and making the learning stronger. It helps you keep the words and ideas for a very long time. It is the opposite of just being a quiet student who only listens. Why does this active way work so well for your memory? It's about how your brain remembers things. When you actively use the language, you make your brain find and use what you know. This is like building a muscle. You can read about lifting weights, but you won't get stronger until you actually lift them. Your brain needs to lift the language by speaking and writing to build strong, lasting connections. When you try to explain something in your new language, you must understand it well enough to say it in your own words. When you write a sentence, you are building meaning yourself. When you speak, you bring together words, grammar, and how you say things all at the same time. This creates a powerful learning moment. These are the things that make you say aha when you finally understand something. By using active language use, you can go beyond just memorizing to speak smoothly and feel confident. You will find that you can remember words and grammar more easily, and you will feel more comfortable sharing your thoughts. This book will help you do that. In the next chapters, we will share specific, useful ways you can start using right away. You will learn how to change passive listening into active learning, how to write your own sentences with confidence, and how to use talking and explaining to make your knowledge stay with you. Are you ready to stop just studying a language and start truly living it? Let's find your ability to speak and remember together. Remember, the best way to unlock any language is not just with your ears or eyes, but with your voice and your pen. It is time to speak your way to smooth speaking and make your learning last. Learning a new language. Learning a new language can feel like standing at the edge of a big, pretty ocean. You see the waves and hear the sounds. You know there's a whole world in there. Many of us start by just putting our toes in the water. We listen to music, watch shows with subtitles, or try to read a simple book. We think that just being near the language will make it stick in our minds. This is what I call the just listening trap. It feels like you're doing something useful. You're letting the language wash over you, right? You're hearing the sounds, seeing the words. It seems smart, but here's the simple truth. Just listening or reading without really doing something with the words often doesn't help you learn well for a long time. It's like standing on the beach and expecting to learn to swim by just watching the waves. You might get a little wet, you might notice a few things, but you won't really understand how to swim. Your brain takes in what it hears and sees, but it's not asked to work with that information. It's like a quiet watcher, not someone who is doing things. This doesn't help you truly understand or be able to use the language when you need it. The words might float around in your head, but they don't become yours. I remember when I first tried to learn French. I was so happy. I bought French books, thinking I would read them easily. I also listened to French radio all the time. I had it on when I cooked, cleaned, and even slept. I felt like I was really learning. I started to know some words, and sometimes a group of words sounded familiar. But if someone spoke to me in French, I got scared. I couldn't make a single sentence. I knew about French, but I couldn't speak French. It made me sad. I heard and saw a lot, but I didn't say anything. My brain was like a sponge, soaking things up, but it wasn't asked to squeeze anything out or make anything new. This leads us to another common mistake, thinking that just remembering words is enough. Many language learning books and classes focus a lot on lists. Lists of words, lists of how verbs change, lists of rules. We spend hours trying to remember these lists, maybe writing them down many times, or using cards with words on them. And yes, we might be able to say them perfectly. We can tell you what a word means, or how a verb changes. This feels like progress, right? It seems like learning because we are getting facts. We are building knowledge, like a dictionary in our heads. But here's the important difference. Knowing a word and remembering it so you can use it easily are two very different things. Think about it. You might remember the word for library and what it means in English. You can even write it down right. But if you are talking to someone and need to ask where the library is, will that word quickly come to your mind? Or will your mind be empty? Often, the words we just remember are like papers in a file cabinet. You know they are there, and you can find them if you have enough time and are told exactly what to look for, like seeing the word written down. But talking easily requires quick thinking, like having those words ready in a box you can grab from without thinking. Just remembering words doesn't build that box. It builds the file cabinet. This brings us to the main point, not using the language enough. Most people learning a new language, including me when I started, spend almost all their time just listening or reading. Listening and reading are anything that comes into your brain. Hearing music, watching shows, reading books, looking at word cards. This is important, of course. You can't speak a language if you've never heard it or seen it. But if you only listen and read, you are missing a big part of learning. You are like a student who only reads books, but never takes a test or writes a paper. They might know a lot about the subject, but they can't show what they know. Using the language, on the other hand, is when you actively make the language. This means speaking, writing, and even trying to explain something in the language you are learning. When you speak, you have to think of the right words, put them in the right order, and say them. Write all at the same time. When you write, you choose words and make sentences to share your own thoughts. This active use makes your brain do more than just see patterns. It has to create them. It's like being asked to build something with blocks instead of just looking at a picture of something already built. When your brain is just taking in information without doing anything, it's like a quiet room. Information comes in, and it might make a little sound, but it doesn't stay for long. But when you actively use the language, when you try to speak, even if you make mistakes, or when you write your own sentences, your brain has to work much harder. It's like a busy workshop. To speak, your brain needs to find the words, join them, shape them into sentences, and then tell your mouth what to do. To write, it needs to find those words and rules and put them on paper. This hard thinking makes stronger links in your brain. These strong links help you remember things for a long time. When you actively use a word or a way of speaking, you're not just seeing it, you're owning it. You're making it a part of the words you can use, not just a word you see on a page. The main difference between knowing a word and remembering it, so you can use it easily when talking, is how well it is stored in your mind. Knowing a word is like having a name on a list. You can find it if you look. Remembering it to use right away is like having that person's name come to your mind the moment you see them. It's fast and easy. This kind of quick remembering doesn't happen from just listening. It happens from actively working with the language, from trying hard, from making it your own. It's the difference between watching a game and playing in it. So, while listening to music or reading a book can be nice and can help you get a feel for the language, they are just the first steps. They are like looking at the food you need to cook. You see them, you know what they are, but you haven't actually cooked anything. Real learning, the kind that stays with you, happens when you start to cook, when you start to use the language yourself. This is where the real learning begins, where the hard work of learning turns into the happiness of speaking and remembering. The next step is to find out exactly how we can do this active work, changing what we passively know into skills we can actively use for a long time. Remembering words and ideas, learning new things can be tricky. We sometimes think that if we see or hear a word many times, it will just stay in our minds. We might see a word in a book and think, I know that word. But then, when we want to use it to say something ourselves, it's gone, like a scared mouse. This is because there's a big difference between just seeing a word and being able to take it out of your brain to speak or write. This difference is why active language use is so good for remembering. Think of it like finding hidden treasure. If you just look at a treasure map, you might see the X. You see it. You know it's on the map. But that doesn't mean you can get the treasure. To get the treasure, you have to go to the spot, pick up a shovel, and start digging. You have to do something. Learning a language is like that. When you just listen or read, you are often just spotting the X on the map. You are seeing the words. But when you try to speak or write, you are the one digging for treasure in your mind. This active digging makes the treasure, the words and ideas, truly yours. So, what happens in your brain when you move from just seeing a word to using it? When you just see a word without trying to use it, your brain might put it away, like putting a book on a shelf without reading it. You know it's there, but you don't really know what's inside. But when you need to use that word, like to talk about your day or ask a question, your brain has to work harder. It has to find that word. It has to pull it out from where it was stored. Then it has to connect it to other words to make a sentence. This searching, finding, and connecting is like giving your brain a good workout. When you actively use a word, your brain has to do more than just remember seeing it. It has to find it, grab it, and use it in a useful way. This effort is very important. It's like trying to remember a phone number. If you just look at it once, you'll likely forget it. But if you have to tell that number to someone else, or type it into your phone many times, your brain has to work harder to remember it. This harder work makes stronger links in your brain. These links are called pathways. The more you use a word actively, the stronger these pathways become. Imagine a path in a forest. If you walk on it only once, it's hard to see. But if you walk on it every day, it becomes a clear, wide road. That's what using language actively does for your memory. It turns faint tracks into strong roads you can use easily. This active work also helps you understand words better. When you just see a word on a list, it's like looking at one toy block. It's just one part. But when you have to use that word in a sentence, you are putting that toy block with other blocks to build something. You are putting it in a place where it makes sense. For example, if you learn the word happy, it's just a word. But if you say, I am happy because I ate yummy ice cream, you are not just remembering happy. You are remembering why you were happy and what made you happy. You are connecting the word to a feeling, a reason, and an action. This makes the word much more meaningful. It's not just a sound or a symbol anymore. It's part of a story, part of an experience. And our brains remember things that have meaning and connection much better. Single words are like single facts. They are harder to hold onto. Words used in sentences, connected to feelings and situations, are like stories. And we remember stories much better. Let me tell you a short story. When I was first learning French, I had a long list of verbs. I studied them every day. I could see a French verb and say, "Yes, I know this one. It means to eat." But if someone asked me, "What did you eat yesterday?" I would freeze. I couldn't find the right verb. I knew the word when I saw it, but I couldn't say it. It was very annoying. I felt like I was failing. I was seeing the treasure map, but I couldn't dig. Then I started trying something different. Instead of just looking at my list, I would pick a few words and try to write sentences about my day using them. I would write, "Yesterday, I ate an apple." Then I would try to say it out loud. Sometimes I would make mistakes, but I kept trying. I even started talking to my cat, explaining things in French. I would point to my apple and say, "J'ai mangé une pomme." It felt silly, but it was active. I was making myself find the word manger and put it in a sentence. I was building those strong roads in my brain. Slowly, very slowly, things began to change. When someone asked me what I ate, I could actually remember the word. It wasn't fast, but it was there. The digging was working. This leads me to another great idea: the power of teaching to learn. Have you heard of the protégé effect? It sounds fancy, but the idea is simple and strong. When you get ready to teach something to someone else, you learn it much better yourself. Because when you are going to teach, you can't just quickly look over things. You have to understand it well enough to explain it clearly. You have to think about how someone else might not understand it. You have to organize your thoughts. You have to practice saying it in different ways. Imagine you were going to explain the word serendipity to a friend who has never heard it. You wouldn't just say, "It means finding good things by accident." You would probably think, "Okay, how can I make this clear?" You might think of an example. It's like when you are looking for your keys, but you find a $20 bill instead. That's serendipity. You might even practice saying it out loud. You are not just remembering the meaning. You are creating examples, you are finding simpler ways to say it, you are thinking about what questions people might ask. All this preparation makes you think about the word in a much deeper way. You are not just getting information, you are actively building your understanding of it, getting ready to share it. So, when you are learning a new word or a new grammar idea, try this. Pretend you have to explain it to someone. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a younger brother or sister, or maybe it's just an imaginary person sitting next to you. Think about how you would describe it. What examples would you use? What common mistakes might people make? The act of getting ready to teach makes you think about the word or idea in a new way. You are not just memorizing, you are understanding. You are not just storing information, you are building a picture of it in your mind. This makes your memory much stronger and more useful. You can then use that word or idea in many different situations, not just the one where you first learn it. Let's look at what's happening in our brains. When we just see a word, like reading it in a sentence, our brain might quickly check, "Have I seen this before?" If yes, it moves on. It's like a librarian quickly looking for a book title on a shelf. But when we actively use a word, it's like being asked to find that book, take it off the shelf, open it, read a specific part, and then tell what it's about. This uses several different brain functions together. We use our working memory to hold the word and the sentence structure. We use our long-term memory to find the word itself. We use our thinking skills to plan the sentence and make sure it makes sense. This many-sided work is much better for memory than just seeing it. The effort it takes to actively remember something is not a mistake. It's how memory works. Think about lifting weights. If you lift a very light weight easily, your muscles don't get much stronger. But if you lift a heavier weight that is hard for you, your muscles get stronger. The same is true for our brains. The thinking effort needed to find a word in your memory and use it correctly, especially when it's a bit hard, is what makes the memory stronger. It's the struggle to find the right word, or to make the correct sentence, that makes that pathway in your brain stronger. This effort tells your brain this is important. We need to remember this well. So don't feel bad if it feels hard sometimes. That feeling of effort means you are building strong, lasting memories. This is why the main idea of this book, active language use, is so important. It's the difference between knowing a language like a stranger and knowing it like a good friend. When you just passively take in a language, it stays on the outside. You can see it, you can hear it, but it's not really yours. But when you actively use it, when you speak it, write it, explain it, disagree with it, make jokes with it, you are bringing it inside. You are making it part of your own thoughts and experiences. You are making it part of you. This active work changes words and ideas from weak, easily forgotten pieces of information into strong, connected parts of your understanding. It's like building a beautiful, complex structure with toy blocks. Each block, word, or idea is connected to many others, making the whole structure strong and meaningful. When you need to remember something, you don't just look for one block. You can move through the connected structure. This is why active use helps you remember words and ideas for a very, very long time. It's not just about memorizing, it's about building a living, breathing understanding of the language. And that, my friends, is the real secret to speaking a language well for a long time. Active learning vs. passive learning. Learning a new language is like standing by a big sea. You see the water, you hear it. Maybe you put your feet in, but to really swim and see what's deep down, you must jump in and move your body. For a long time, I just stood there. New words and rules came at me like waves. I read books, heard songs, watched shows. I felt like I was learning, but the words did not feel like mine. They were like clothes someone else wore. They looked okay, but they were not the right size. I knew them when I saw them, but asking me to wear them myself? That was hard. I remember trying to learn the word for butterfly in Spanish. It is mariposa. I saw it in books, heard it in songs, and watched it on TV. I knew what a butterfly was. I knew the Spanish word, but when I tried to say it, my mind went empty. It made me feel bad. I was in a park in a city called Barcelona. I saw a pretty butterfly fly by. My friend, who spoke Spanish, pointed and said, "Look, a very pretty butterfly." I understood her well, but when I wanted to say, "Wow, I like butterflies," my brain stopped. I could see mariposa and know what it meant, but I could not say it. It was like I was looking at the language through a window, not living in it. Then, one day, my friend was teaching me about birds. She pointed to a small, fast bird and said its name. I did not hear it. She said it again. I still did not get it. She saw I was confused. Instead of saying the name again, she asked me, "What does this bird do?" I thought for a moment. I said in Spanish, "It flies very fast. And it sings a lot." My friend smiled. "So, it is a singing and fast bird." Then she told me the real name of the bird, un ruisinier. Suddenly, ruisinier was not just a sound I heard. It was linked to the idea of a bird that sings and flies fast. Later that day, I saw another one. I did not just see it, I knew it. I could say, "Oh, a ruisinier," without thinking. That was my special moment. My friend did not just give me a word. She made me use the language to understand and tell about the bird. Then I could link that telling to the word. I had to do something with the language, not just hear it. This is what we will talk about. The big difference between just taking in language and using it. Learning by watching. The quiet watcher. Let's start by seeing what learning by watching looks like. Think of yourself as someone watching quietly. You are in a cafe. You hear people talking in the language you are learning. You hear the sounds. You might know a word here and there, but you are not part of the talk. This is quiet listening. Or maybe you are reading a book. You see the words. You understand the story as you read, but you are not writing anything. You are not looking up every word. You are not trying to tell the story again in your own words. This is quiet reading. Learning by watching is when you get information, but do not use it or change it. It is like watching a cooking show. You see the cook cut, heat, and add spices. You understand what they do as they do it on the screen. You might think, I could do that. But until you go to your kitchen, get your own food, and actually cook, you have not truly learned to make that food. You only watched someone else do it. When learning a language, these are things you do by watching. Listening to music or talks, you hear the language, but you do not sing along or try to write down the words. Watching shows or movies, you follow the story, but you do not stop to say the lines again or try to guess what happens next by speaking. Reading books or stories, you understand the words as you read, but you do not stop to tell the main points or look up words to use them yourself. Going to talks or classes, you listen to the teacher explain rules, but you do not try right away to make your own sentences with those rules. These things are not bad. They are important. They help you feel the language. They help you learn new words and how they are used. They help you hear how to say things. They build your base. But they are like filling a bucket with water and not putting a lid on it. The water can fly away. If you only listen or read, the information stays in your mind for a short time. It is there for a little while, but it does not go deep into your mind where you can get it later easily. You might feel like you are getting better because you are around the language. But to be really good, you need more. Learning by doing. Becoming the cook. Now let's talk about learning by doing. This is when you become the cook in your language kitchen. Learning by doing means you are doing things with the language. You are not just watching, you are part of it. You are making, creating, and using the language yourself. It is the opposite of watching quietly. It is about making sounds, making mistakes, and making the language yours. Learning by doing is when you speak out loud. You say words and groups of words again. You practice how to say them. You try to make your own sentences, even if it is just to yourself. Write sentences. You take new words and rules you learned and make your own sentences. Tell the main points and explain. You try to explain an idea, a story, or what a word means in the language you are learning. This is like telling the cooking steps again in your own words. Teach others or yourself. Explaining something to someone else makes you put your thoughts in order and use that language well. You can even explain it to someone who is not real or to a pet. Answer questions. When you find new information, you ask yourself questions about it and try to answer them in the language. Practice saying things on purpose. You focus on making certain sounds. You might record yourself and compare it to how a native speaker sounds. Remember my story about Mariposa? When my friend asked me to describe the bird before telling me the name, she made me do something active. I had to use what I knew about flying fast and singing a lot and say it in Spanish. That step of finding and using information is what makes learning stick. When you use the language, you are telling your brain, this is important. Pay attention. We need to remember this. Why learning by doing works, your brain with language. So, why is this doing much stronger than just seeing or hearing? It is all about how our brains learn and remember things. Think of your brain like a garden. When you learn by watching, you are like someone dropping seeds on top of the dirt. Some might grow, but many will blow away or get washed out. Learning by doing is like digging the dirt, planting the seeds well, giving them water and sun. You are taking care of them, and they are more likely to grow into strong plants. There are a few main reasons why learning by doing works so well. Trying to remember. This is a big word for trying to get information from your mind. When you try to speak or write a word, you are trying to remember it. Each time you get something from your mind, you make the link to it in your brain stronger. It is like making a path in the woods. The more you walk on that path, the clearer and easier it is to find your way. Just seeing or hearing a word is like noticing a small path. Using it is like clearing and making that path wider. Thinking harder. When you have to speak or write something, you have to think about it more. You do not just know the word mariposa. You have to get its meaning, decide if it fits, and then make the sound or write the letters. This harder thinking makes the memory much stronger. You are not just looking at the word. You are working with it, knowing where it fits and why. Making links. Using the language makes you link new information with what you already know. When I told about the bird being singing and fast before knowing Rusignol, I was making links. I used words I already knew to connect to the new word. This web of links makes information easier to get later. The more links something has, the more ways your brain can find it. Getting help and fixing mistakes. When you try to speak or write, you often find out right away if it is right or wrong. You might say a word wrong. You might use the wrong grammar. Or how you say it might be off. This help is very important. It tells your brain, this is not quite right, let's fix it. This fixing is a big part of learning by doing. Just hearing something usually does not give you this kind of direct help. What you only hear or see often goes away fast. Studies show that after a few days, we forget most of what we only read or hear. But what we use and connect with, what we try to remember and use, stays with us much longer. It changes from information for a short time to knowledge that lasts. Feeling like you know. Seeing vs. remembering. One of the biggest problems in learning a language is feeling like you know it, but you really don't. Learning by watching often makes this happen. Imagine you are reading a list of words. You see the English word and then the Spanish word. You see apple and then manzana. You think, yes, manzana. I know that. You go to banana and platano. Okay, I know that too. You keep going, seeing words you know. You feel sure of yourself. You might think you learned 50 new words. But then someone asks you, what fruit do you like best? Suddenly your mind is empty. You cannot remember manzana or platano. You only remember the English words. What happened? This is the feeling of knowing when you don't. You were good at seeing the Spanish words when they were next to the English words. This is easy for our brains. But you did not practice remembering, being able to say the Spanish word when you only have the English idea or when you need to use it in a sentence. Learning by watching often makes us think seeing is the same as truly knowing. We see a word on a card and think we know it. We hear a phrase in a show and understand it. But when it is our turn to speak, to say that word or phrase, we find we cannot. It is like knowing the names of all the tools in a shop but not being able to use them to build anything. Learning by doing is the answer to this false feeling of knowing. When you make yourself speak or write, you are testing if you can remember and use the language. If you cannot say the word manzana when asked about your favorite fruit, you know right away you need more practice. This might feel bad at first, but it is good. It shows you where you really need to work. It breaks the false idea that you know and leads to real understanding and memory. It is much better to know you don't know something and work on it than to think you know it and not be able to use it when it matters. Closing the gap. making watching into doing. The good news is you do not have to throw away everything you use for learning by watching. You can make them into ways to learn by doing. It is about adding a step that makes you do something with what you get. Here are some easy ways to do this. From listening to speaking, copying. When listening to a talk or a conversation, try to say what the speaker says at the same time they say it. Copy their sound, their tone, and how they say the words. This is very active. Stop and say again. Do not just listen. Stop the sound after a sentence or a phrase and say it again. Try to say it just like you heard it. Tell what you heard. After listening to a part, stop the sound. Try to explain in your own words in the language you were learning, if you can, what the speaker was talking about. Even a few sentences are good. From reading to writing and speaking. Read out loud. Do not just read in your head. Read the words out loud. This uses your speaking muscles and helps how you say things. Write your own sentences. When you learn a new word or rule from a book, do not just mark it. Write at least 2 or 3 of your own sentences using that new thing. Make them about you. For example, if you learn the Spanish word for library biblioteca, write I want to go to the biblioteca, or the biblioteca is quiet. Tell the main points of a part. After reading a part or a page, close the book. Try to write or say a short version of the main ideas in your own words. From watching to talking, say the lines again. When watching a show, stop during a talk and say the lines again. Try to copy the actor's feeling and how they sound. Yes, and speak. Stop the show before a person says something important. Try to guess what they will say and say your guess out loud. Then see if you were right. Tell about what you see. Turn off the sound for a minute. Try to say what is happening on the screen using the language you are learning. These might seem like small steps, but they make a big difference. They change you from someone who just gets information to someone who makes things. You are no longer just letting the language wash over you. You are using it, working with it, and making it yours. This active use is the key to truly understanding and making sure what you learn stays with you for a very long time. It is about changing from just knowing about the language to truly knowing the language. The feeling of knowing, seeing vs. remembering. Let's look more closely at that feeling of knowing a language. When you learn by watching, you often feel like you recognize things. You can pick out words and phrases when you hear or see them. This feels good. It feels like you are making progress. You might think, I understand about 70% of this song. Or I can follow the story of this show. But this feeling can trick you. It is like seeing someone you know in a crowd. You know you have seen them before, but you might not remember their name or anything about them. Seeing is a simpler way our minds work compared to remembering. Remembering makes you search your mind and get specific information. When you actively use a language, you are practicing remembering. You are making your brain go beyond just seeing patterns and actually make the language. This is harder for your brain, and because it is harder, it makes a stronger, longer-lasting memory. Think about learning to ride a bike. You can watch many videos of people riding bikes. You can understand how it works, how to balance, the movements. You might feel like you know how to ride a bike, but until you get on a bike, push off, wobble, maybe fall, and try again, until you make your body and mind work at it, you have not truly learned. The feeling of knowing you get from actually riding a bike is very different from the passive understanding you get from watching. It is a feeling of knowing with your body, of trust built by doing. The same is true for language. The trust that comes from being able to make your own sentences, to say what you think, and to be understood by others is built on active remembering, not just seeing. This is the difference between feeling like you might understand something and feeling sure that you can talk. Going forward, using it on purpose, knowing the difference between learning by watching and learning by doing is the first important step. It is about knowing that just being around a language is not enough for deep, lasting learning. We need to use it on purpose. We need to be active parts of our language journey. This does not mean stopping listening or reading completely. They are useful tools, but it means thinking about them in a new way. It means asking ourselves, how can I do something with this information? How can I change this watching experience into a doing one? By making this change, we move away from the false feeling of knowing and towards real skill. We start building strong, dependable paths in our brains. We begin to truly own the language, not just borrow it. This use on purpose is the base for remembering what we learn, not just for a day or a week, but for our whole lives. It is about changing our learning from watching to a full, hands-on experience. And in the next part, we will look at specific, useful ways to help you do just that. Using the language to learn. Learning a new language can feel like standing by a big ocean. The sounds and words come at you like waves. Many people start by just listening. They listen to music, watch movies, or hear people who speak the language well. They also read books to take in everything. This is a good start, like putting your feet in the water. But if you want to swim in the ocean, to go deep and feel the water move, you must do more than just stand on the edge. You need to jump in and use the water. This is where learning gets exciting. Think of it like having a big box of tools. When you only listen or read, you are just looking at the tools. You can see them all. You know there is a hammer and a screwdriver. But can you use them? Not really. Now, imagine you need to build something. You must reach into the box, find the right tool for the job, and use it. Your brain works harder to do this. It makes your brain remember where the tool is and how it works. This is called active language use. It's not just seeing the tools, it's picking them up and building with them. This active way of learning helps our memory a lot. When you try to say a word or write a sentence in your new language, your brain doesn't just see it. It has to work to find that word or sentence from its memory. This is called active recall. It's like a tough workout for your brain. When you hear or read something, your brain might know it quickly because it's right there. It's like seeing a friend in a crowd, you know them. But if you have to say their name without seeing them, that's harder. Your brain must search, connect, and find the name. This search makes the memory much stronger. It's the difference between a soft whisper and a loud bell. Every time you make your brain find a word to speak or write, you are telling your brain, this is important. Remember this. And your brain listens. It makes the connection stronger, so it's easier to find next time. This is why speaking and writing help you remember things for a long time, much more than just listening and reading. I remember learning Japanese. I listened to many things and watched shows for hours. I felt like I understood a lot. But when I tried to speak, my mind was empty. It was like my brain had a room full of words, but no one to help me find them. I could point to a book on a shelf, but I couldn't say its name or where it was without help. One day, I talked with a friend from Japan. I wanted to ask about a certain kind of food. I knew the word for food tabemono and the word for tasty oishii, but I couldn't remember the name of the food itself. I spoke slowly, trying to put the words together. My friend gently helped me, saying, "Ah, you mean ramen?" In that moment, the word ramen stuck. But more importantly, I saw how much I didn't know how to actively use the words I thought I understood. I could hear ramen and know what it meant, but I couldn't think of it myself. That was a big change. I started to force myself to speak, even when it was hard and slow. I would try to tell about my day or ask simple questions. Every try, even when I was quiet or people looked confused, helped me build the active recall. This active use also acts like a bright light, showing the unclear parts of what you know. When you try to make your own sentences or explain an idea, you quickly find out what you don't know. You might know a word, but do you know how to use it right in a sentence? Do you know what other words it usually goes with? Do you know its small differences from other words that mean almost the same thing? Learning without using rarely shows these missing pieces. You can read a sentence and think, yes, I get this, because the words are already put together for you. But when you have to build the sentence yourself, you see exactly where you need more help. It's like trying to put a puzzle together. When you just look at the picture on the box, it seems clear. But when you try to fit the pieces, you find one piece doesn't fit, or you can't find the piece with a certain color. Trying to speak or write is like trying to build that puzzle yourself. You pick up a piece of word and try to join it to another piece, another word. If they don't fit, you know there's a problem. Finding these problems yourself is very helpful because it shows you exactly what you need to study more. Instead of just looking at everything again, you can focus on the words, grammar rules, or sentence parts that you found hard to use. This makes your learning work better and be more focused. You are not just learning, you are learning smarter. When I started writing short stories in French, I often got stuck. I knew the main idea, but I couldn't find the right action words or the best way to say a feeling. I had to look things up all the time, but each time I looked up a word or a grammar rule, I made a note in my mind. The next time I tried to write something similar, I would remember that struggle and tried to use the new word or rule I had learned. It felt slow at first, but over time, my sentences sounded more natural, and I found myself using those words more easily. This wasn't just remembering, it was building a real understanding of how the language worked, bit, by my own effort. There's also an interesting part of language learning that's like building muscle memory. When you learn to play music, you don't just learn the notes on paper. You play the notes many times. Your fingers learn the movements, your hands learn to work together. It becomes almost automatic. Speaking and writing a language do something similar for your brain and your body. The physical act of making sounds with your mouth, the movements of your tongue and lips, how you shape your writing with a pen or type on a keyboard, these all help create a kind of muscle memory for the language. When you speak, the muscles in your mouth and throat are working. They are learning to make sounds that might be totally new to you. The more you practice these sounds, the easier they are to make. It's not just about knowing how to make the sound, it's about your body remembering how to make it. In the same way, when you write, your hand learns the shape of the letters and words. This physical connection to the language makes it stick better. It goes from something you think about a lot to something that becomes more automatic. This is why learners who speak and write often find their language become smoother and faster. They don't stop as much to look for words or figure out how to say them. Their language muscles have been trained. Think about learning to ride a bike. You can read all the books you want about balance and how to pedal, but until you actually get on the bike and try to ride, you won't really learn. You'll wobble, you might fall, but each try builds the muscle memory and the coordination you need to stay up and move forward. Language is very similar. The act of speaking and writing trains your body's ability to communicate, making the language feel more natural and less like hard work. One of the best ways to use language actively is by explaining things. When you try to explain an idea, a concept, or even just a simple event in the language you're learning, you have to do more than just know words. You must understand the meaning behind those words and how they connect to make clear thoughts. You need to make hard ideas simple, find the right words, and arrange your explanation in a good order. This process requires you to understand very well. Imagine you just learned a new science idea. If you can explain that idea clearly to someone else in the language you were learning, it means you truly understand it. You can't just repeat sentences. You have to break it down, use comparisons, and make sure the other person can follow what you are saying. This act of changing, not just from one language to another, but from complex knowledge to simple explanation, is very good for learning. It makes you think about the subject much more deeply than just reading about it. You have to own the information to be able to explain it. This is why teaching others, or even pretending to teach them, is such a great way to learn. When I was learning Spanish, I would often try to explain Spanish grammar rules to my cat. It sounds funny, I know, but the act of putting those rules into my own words, trying to make them clear and simple, helped me understand them better myself. I had to think about why a certain verb was changed in a specific way, or why a certain adjective had to match a noun in its gender and number. Just memorizing the rule wasn't enough. I had to be able to explain it. This is a main part of active language use, not just taking in information, but thinking about it, understanding it, and then saying it. So when we talk about active language use, we really mean using the language in a way that makes your brain work. It's about finding words, not just seeing them. It's about finding out what you don't understand by trying to create something with the language. It's about building the physical paths in your mouth and brain that make speaking feel more natural. And it's about truly understanding something by being able to tell it to someone else. These actions are what drive fluency and are the secret to remembering what you learn for a very long time. By changing from just taking in language to actively making it, you're not just learning words. You're building the paths in your brain that lead to real fluency and memory that lasts. The next step is to look at the most direct and helpful ways to put this active use into practice. Starting with the skill of explaining. Conclusion: you have finished this book, but more importantly, you are starting a new part of your journey to learn a language. Maybe before, you felt stuck. Maybe you learned many words but forgot them fast. Or maybe just listening and reading did not help you feel confident to speak. We have learned a big secret to becoming good at a language and remembering it for a long time. This secret helps all your hard work stay with you. This book has shown you a new way to learn, a way where you are in control. The most important idea we learned is this: use the language actively. This is the key to truly understanding and remembering things for a long time. Think about learning to ride a bike. You can read books about balance and how to pedal. You can watch many videos. But you will not truly learn to ride until you get on the bike and start moving, maybe wobbling, and even falling down. Just listening or reading is like watching videos. Using the language actively is like getting on the bike and pedaling, even if you are a bit wobbly at first. When you use a language actively, you are not just getting information. You are thinking about it, connecting it, and making it your own. This makes your brain stronger. It makes it easier and faster to remember things. This is the opposite of just being a quiet student. It means doing things with the language. This idea puts the power in your hands. It is not about being special. It is about working hard and using the language often. So, what should you do next? Your next steps are clear and exciting. Do not wait until you feel ready to speak. Start speaking now. Even if it is just a few words to yourself, do it every day. Find chances to use the language, no matter how small. Write something every day, even if it is short. Write new words in your own sentences. Keep a simple diary. Or describe your day. Learn by teaching. Try to explain a new grammar rule or some new words to a friend, your family, or even to yourself in the mirror. Mistakes are not bad. They show you how to understand better. Accept them as part of your learning. Set small goals for using the language each day. Maybe you will speak for 5 minutes. Or write 3 new sentences. Or explain 1 new idea. Doing it regularly is more important than doing a lot all at once. Short times of active practice, done often, will help you much more than trying to do too much at one time. And try to find people who are also learning or who speak the language. Remember, becoming good at a language and remembering it well does not happen by just listening or reading. It happens by actively making things with the language. You have the tools. This journey is yours to make. Go now, speak, write, explain, and remember. Have fun learning.